One Question is designed to give subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive and organizational leadership. Be sure to follow us on social media at 1Q Leadership. Our guest today is Jamie Pollard. Jamie is the Director of Athletics at Iowa State University. Greetings, Jamie. Thanks for joining us.
Glad to be on, Ty.
Now, Jamie, you've been in the AD chair. You're this fall, I guess you started your 15th year there at Iowa State University, which is a big thing. Longevity is an excellent thing. And then, of course, 30 years in the industry, right? There's a lot to say for that. It makes you wise, right? I know you want to say that you're old, but I think it makes you wise.
I love you saying that I'm wise versus old. I'm hopefully just a little of both.
Right. Well, I've known you for at least 10 of those 30 years in the industry. And from what I know about you is everything you do operates at a high level, and people want to be in the environment that you have created and that you maintain. One thing I didn't know that I know now is that you are a national champion long distance runner from Wisconsin, Oshkosh. Look at that. That is excellent news right there. Nobody can ever take that away from you. There's no such thing as a former national champion. You are that national champion from that year at Wisconsin, Oshkosh. So that's an excellent thing.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Now, Jamie, the reason why I wanted to have you on is because within the industry, now I'm 40, and young professionals, let's call young professionals everybody younger than I am, right? Many young professionals are unhappy in their current organizations, and they're probably considering changing jobs, whether they've been there for a year or 2 years. Some people change jobs every year because for some reason they are not happy with the job they are doing. My opinion is that there is a lack of leadership development within the mid-level management. There may be some blame put on these young professionals too, in addition to blame put on the organizations. But even before leadership development starts, everything begins with culture and making sure those on your staff understand and buy into the culture of the organization. And I know you've done an excellent job there for the 15 years that you've been there at Iowa State. And I wonder about your processes for ensuring that young new hires and other young professionals embrace the culture of your athletics department.
Well, one of the things we've done consistently in the 15 years I've been athletics director is when anybody new starts in the department, whether you're young, old, it doesn't matter. If you're new and you come into this department, you are going to, I call it, you get 15 minutes on the couch with me. And so I have them come in, and part of what that is to try to accomplish three things, all centered around culture. First one is, I always say, you already got the job, so, no need to be nervous, but I want to go off resume because I want to know more about the person. I would want to be able to put a face with the name, but more importantly, I want to know about, who they are, how they got to where they are, try to find out what makes them tick and figure out something that can stick with me besides just their name and their job title. Something that when I'm, walking around the department and I see them, that I can keep things more personal than, just, hi, how are you? Secondly is it gives me the opportunity to share with them a couple of points that are very fundamental that I think are what allow our athletics department to be successful. And I'll go into those in a moment here. And then thirdly is to just send the message from the top of the organization chart that we're here as a resource for questions for, I always tell them, you're probably not coming to me to talk about ask a question about, whatever their field is, specifically, because that's probably too technical for me. But if they want to know something about the industry, something about our department, something about our community, that I really want them to know that I'm here as a resource and that they can walk down the hall. If my door's open, come in, they can text me, they can call me. And I do that because I always say that, people, why I'm in the role I'm in versus the role they are in is I've just been doing it longer. But more importantly is people along the way availed themselves to me, and that's how I learned. And so I want them to know that our organization really welcomes that, and that they should have that opportunity. So by coming at that and those three areas, and we can go more into the second area, which is, what do I think makes this place tick? But I think has really been empowering to them, because, we talk about, in our department, a third of the people have been here longer than me, so longer than 15 years, and there's a third of the people that have been here probably 3 years or less. And both of those populations have the ability to drastically shape the culture here for the positive. The older people have wisdom and experience. The younger people have fresh ideas and, contemporary ideas, and we need to meld those two together, because that's what the middle third ends up being. A combination of all that. And so I always want the new people to really know that, even if it's their first job, that they can add value, because they can add value by keeping our wisdom and experienced people sharp and contemporary.
Yeah, that's actually very important. And you say that, and I had David Harris on a little while ago, and I know he worked with you for a while there at Iowa State, and the things he said tie into exactly what you're saying. I mean, that he felt like his input was valued. You identified him as somebody who had some leadership potential, and walked with him through his career, and then sent him off to become an athletics director up there in Northern Iowa. I think that's an excellent thing, and it's proof of exactly what you're saying. I wonder about the first thing you said, they come and spend 15 minutes with you, and it's an open conversation, not about the resume, no need to be nervous. Do they ask a bunch of questions? Do you ask a bunch of questions? If it was me, I would probably be asking you a whole bunch of questions, but I'm sure everybody's not like me and super inquisitive. So tell me about that, how those usually end up.
You get a mixed bag, Ty. I always tell them it's not a test. So, if they don't have a question, it's okay, but that they're empowered to ask that question some other time. I always say, if I'm walking through the building, the best thing you can do for me is to tug on my arm and say, hey, Jamie, what about this? Or tell me what you're working on, because I'm not always there to see the head coach or the director of that unit. I'm sometimes just out trying to be a normal person like everybody else. And I think that they really appreciate that, because you're setting, again, the tone and the culture for, what I hope they're going to experience in their time with us. And I'm amazed, Ty, the number of people that, again, I say I do that with all new people, whether, and so some of our most experienced people that maybe have worked in the industry years, especially coaches, and they'll say, I've never been in the AD's office, or the AD's never, ever sat down with me and asked questions about me. And I'm always amazed when I hear stuff like that, because to me, that's like elementary, but not everybody approaches leadership the same way.
That's true. Is this the graduate assistants too, or this is every full-time person that comes to work?
For graduate assistants, it's volunteers.
Everybody, huh?
Yes. It's important. Two of the things that I talk about to try to help them understand what our culture is I use two examples. And, the first one I talk about is, if we think that, first of all, I say facilities and budgets matter. Okay. And, I'd be disingenuous to say they don't. But if we think facilities and budgets are going to be the margin at Iowa State, then we're chasing something that, will be very unfulfilling, because there's others, especially in our league, that will print more money and build bigger facilities. So we've got to find something that can be our margin, and I believe it's our people. But what I always tell them is, everybody says that about their people. And so I acknowledge, I don't think we have the best people, okay? Because I think there's really good people in this world, and for me to say we have the best people would be very shallow. But I do know this: if we get the right people for our organization, then we'll have the best people for our organization. And so then I walk them through what I think is best. And the first thing is, people that succeed here, that have been the most successful, are the people that, when they get here, they don't come in and go, oh, wow, I'm at a Big 12 school, I'm in a Power 5 school. The people that are really successful are the ones that are happy that they're at that level, but they have this chip on their shoulder that they want to prove they belong at that level and that they're willing to kind of climb that mountain and take the risks that are associated with doing something maybe other people were afraid to do or couldn't do. And then secondly, are people that either don't have or know how to pack their ego. And I actually talk about that and say, ego at a place like Iowa State is the biggest stunter of success, because at a place like Iowa State, everybody has got to be pulling for everybody. The football can't be successful without the janitor being really good, without admissions being really good, without compliance being really good. And the quickest way to stunt other people helping you is to try to walk all over them because you're the football coach or you're the basketball coach. And so I empower them by saying, if you run into somebody's ego and somebody's attitude is causing problems for you. Number one, if it happens a couple times, people get out of bed on the wrong side of the bed. I get it. Okay, nobody's perfect. But number two, if it happens frequently, I want you to take notes, because if it happens too much, I want to know about it. Because I know this, if we don't weed out those people that have ego, what'll happen is the good people will leave, not the bad people. Because good people will say, I don't want, I can go do this somewhere else. And so I want them to know ahead of time, number one, don't have ego. But number two is, if you experience it from somebody, you got to talk to people about that, because we'll try to deal with it head on. And then I have this other kind of corny statement that I say, we're not Disney. And I always say, you probably think like, what does he mean by that? And I think of Disney, I think of the people walking around with the little scoopers cleaning everything up, and Disney's got everything in place. It's the perfect world, the magical kingdom, right? And they can do that because they have all the people and all the money. We don't have either, but we have each of us. And we have eyes, ears, noses. And so if it doesn't look right, feel right, smell right, it's probably not right. So you got to tell somebody about it so that we can make sure we correct it, because the person behind you might be the great recruit and their parents, or it might be the sponsor. And how we present ourselves is really important. And so, if we're not picking up trash, or we're not, lights are out, or, there's something not working right, we need to all be empowered to treat it like it's ours, and that we want to make sure somebody knows to correct that. And so they're very fundamental things, Ty, but they're a way just to kind of empower new people to say, you're joining something that's bigger than you, and you got to be part of it.
Right. So the people lose the ego, and we're not Disney. Everybody matters here. We all do our job. We all need to make sure this place is successful. Are those the three things that were the step two of your 3-part process when you talk to people?
Yes, that was a step two. I always give them this example, which you'll find humor. I said, my facilities people laugh at me. I'm probably the only AD in the country that will go see the facility people to save the paper towels out in the bathroom, right? And I always say, I go, what did the person before me do? Just wipe their hands on their pants, or, right. Go tell somebody the paper towel's out. It's simple things like that none of us should be above.
That's very important. And then the third thing you mentioned was for the people on your staff to be inquisitive, to come ask questions, to actually, by asking those questions, the people who are on the staff are probably learning, right? The 1/3 of people who have been there a while should be learning from the 1/3 of new people, because it keeps everybody sharp. I think that's a big part of what young professionals want, is basically a voice. They want to be heard. They want to know that their feedback is potentially useful and could probably help the organization to be successful. I think that's an excellent thing that you have going on there, Jamie. Can you tell me about when you talk about leadership development, right? Is it sounds like the environment is organic, but I imagine there's some intent and some deliberate leadership development when you talk about young professionals and people who have been on the staff for a while.
So a couple things. One thing that we talk about with our staff is to think of yourself as your own business, that you're a sole proprietor. And, when you're a sole proprietor and you're starting a business, you don't draw a salary, you invest in yourself. And so what I try to challenge our young people to do is invest in yourself. And so there's ways you can do that before you need somebody. And so one of the ways to do that is you got to develop relationships. And the best way to develop relationships is to reach out and make other people feel important. So what I tell new staff is take the phone tree and find your own interval. And the interval could be once a week, once a month, doesn't matter to me. It's an investment that you're making. No one's ever going to go back and double check to see if you did it. but reach out to somebody in our department that you don't know that you can ask, can I come over and find out what, spend 30 minutes with you just asking you questions about what you do. And I said, what you'll do by doing that is, number one, you're making a huge investment in yourself, because you're going to learn about something else in the department. Number two is you're going to develop a relationship with somebody that you maybe wouldn't have ever had. And oftentimes, you hear the old thing is, get to know somebody before that person can do something for you. A lot of times where people try to get to know people that they think can help them, right? Well, what about getting to know somebody that at this point you don't think can really help you? They can help you by, you're going to learn something about them, but what I'm referring to is you never know where somebody else is going to end up. And you may be applying for a job 5 years from now, and that person that worked in another part of our department is now working at that institution, and you're going to want to lean on them, and they're going to go, well, yeah, I don't remember Ty at all. Well, you know what I remember about Ty? When he first started, he came and asked me what I do in compliance or what I do in event management. And then the other part of it is it totally helps our culture, because every one of us wants to feel important. And there's nothing more important than when somebody wants to know about what you do. And so you can make somebody feel really good by a new person saying, I want to go learn about what the assistant marketing person does. And what that does is it further reinforces that we got a really good culture here, because that assistant marketing person now maybe in year 3 or 4, and they're going to feel really good about themselves. So I try to get them to think about that leadership development process as something that's not static. It's a continuum process, but they've got to invest in it, and they've got to understand. And then, like the other thing I always say is your price for meeting with me, the cost, your fee for meeting with me is when people want to meet with you, whether they're students, somebody else that's trying to learn from our department, is you make time for them. You pay it forward, because I paid it forward to you.
This is an excellent thing, Jamie, because many athletics departments, I don't know a percentage, I don't know if it's most, I don't know anything, but people are so busy doing their job, so busy making sure they execute what they have to execute at a high level, that the communication and the collaboration and the people part of it is pushed to the side, and everybody just wants to do their job at a high level. I think it's excellent that you can have an organization that executes at a high level, but still emphasizes the importance of understanding the people you work with. That is a major benefit to working with you here at Iowa State.
Well, the other second piece to the answer to that leadership development process is, so when I first started, you try to follow the blueprint of other people, and you have these meetings, and what, I'm not a big meeting person, so I detest meetings just to meet. What we started doing, and started it probably 4 or 5 years ago, and they've been so well received, is instead of, I have my weekly time that I'm with my senior staff, and there's certain things with your direct reports you just have to do, but I'm talking about where you do, coaches meetings and department head meetings, and, are you doing that every month? And, just you're spending so much time just trying to figure out what you're going to meet about, that no one's being productive. So what we went to is, when they're periodic, they're I call them brown bag lunches, and they usually are, the frequency of them are based on whatever's kind of happening. It's when I know I've got stuff that has happened in our department that I have experienced, whether it's at the Big 12 or national meetings, or with just what's going on here at Iowa State, that anybody in the department can come, and it's in one of our conference rooms, and it's just, bring your lunch, and I call it the Athletic Director Unplugged. And I may have 4 or 5 topics that I'm going to walk them through, but I'm going to give them the opportunity to know what I was thinking and why I thought what I did as we work through a particular situation. And there's, not behind a podium. I stand right in front of them. And a lot of times now we get 40, 50 people there. There's people sitting on the floor. Like I always say, it's like kindergarten, because we got too many people in the room and they're sitting down on the floor. But it's their chance to just, to ask me, like, well, why did you think to do that? Or, why are we doing this? And we have found that I get the feedback from our staff that they've said those are the most beneficial things we've ever done in this department.
Right. Right. That's excellent. Now, this is good or bad, right? Something you had to make a decision that affected a bunch of people. You had to make a great decision, or something bad happened. You come in and talk, hey, here's my thinking.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's interesting.
I had one earlier this summer where I actually called the meeting because we've now refined it some, but it's the refinement that I'm using as on my stump speech around our donors is we're not our father's athletics department. Remember the old Oldsmobile ads? We're not our father's Oldsmobile, right? And so I walked through, like, we were 75 people, now we're 225 people, and our budget was this. But what I did with that group, and it was very raw because I'm an activator, and so I didn't really think through. I just said, I got to do this, is I was struggling. I was struggling as the leader of our department because I was at a point in time this summer where I was frustrated. I didn't know if I could keep going because I hadn't evolved, and I hadn't let our organization evolve the way it needed to evolve leadership-wise, because I was still trying to do things the way we were doing it 15 years ago, because I knew everybody in the department. And now with 225 people, it's just harder to know everybody's names, and it's harder to, to be everything to everybody. And I was really struggling with that. And so I kind of had, for lack of better terms, kind of a breakdown moment in front of them where they really got to see who I was. And what came out of that was, what we ended up doing as an organization to address that we needed to make some changes structurally. And had I just made those changes structurally, I don't think people would have felt as bought into why we were making the changes.
What does a breakdown look like for Jamie Pollard in front of the staff of 40 or 50 people, and you come to the conclusion?
I mean, it's not. I didn't go into it knowing that's what I was going to do. In fairness, what triggered it was a couple things had happened where I was out of the office, where I kind of felt like organizationally we were just checking the box and doing what we did in the past, right? So I was frustrated, but I wasn't mad at our staff. I was mad at me, because what had happened was, when I'd been out of the office the year prior, I remember talking and saying, we got to think about doing that differently. Why are we continuing to just do it that way? Well, all of a sudden it hit me. A year had gone by, and we do this tailgate tour around the state, so I'm on the road for 3 weeks. Well, we were getting ready to go out to do the tailgate, and I was feeling the same kind of anxiety that I was feeling a year earlier. We hadn't done anything differently. We had just checked the box, and we're going to do the same old, and it was really frustrating. But I was mad at myself because, if I feel that strongly about it, then why didn't I make the change happen? And so what I did is that prompted me to have the meeting, but the meeting actually turned into me really kind of self-examining. Why didn't I make it happen? I didn't make it happen because I got too many people reporting to me, or I'm trying to do stuff that, I can't do because we're 225, not 75. So we've got to evolve. We have to evolve, all of us. And so as a result of that, there's going to be we've got to discuss what needs to change. And so they felt really part of kind of the solution, because they saw the agony and the pain.
So they see you standing up there having an introspective conversation with yourself, but you're talking to them basically. Like, what exactly?
Well, yes, and an emotion came out.
Right.
I mean, I know I had some tears.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Because I remember telling them, I told them that day, I said, one of three things are going to happen. Okay, I'm either going to have another heart attack, I'm going to just up and quit and walk away and say I'm done, or we're going to do something to make a difference to change things. And I don't plan to have a heart attack, and I'm not ready to walk away. And so the third thing is going to happen, but that's why, because I'm going to break if we don't. And I'm sure there's other people in this room that can totally identify with me, because they're feeling the same thing about their job, that they're going to break right now because, we're running wide open, and we're, too much is happening, and we used to be able to all cover it, but now we can't.
Yeah, and that's probably the case in many athletic departments around the country. Well, I, like probably the rest of your staff in the Iowa State community, are very glad that you chose option 3 because we don't want option 1 to happen. No more heart attacks, or you'll get a ton of books from me like you did last time. I'll send you a box of 15 books. We don't want you to walk away from it, because then who am I going to see out there in the industry that makes me feel calm to know that there's high level people who are personable and love to be around other people in the industry. And I think this has been an excellent conversation here, Jamie. It's very insightful in terms of how you do the things you do there at Iowa State University, and make young professionals as well as people who have been in the industry for a while feel comfortable. I appreciate you joining us here on One Question.
Well, thank you for what you're doing to help give professional development opportunities and learning opportunities for everyone, not just young people, but all of us. So, Ty, you're a good man, and I didn't know you were 40. You've aged with me. I thought I aged, and I thought you stayed young.
Well, look, here's 2 things I learned. My father always said, if you aren't getting older, you're dead, right? And so you got to be happy to age. That's true. And then I learned
Captain Obvious.
That's a good one. Yeah, exactly. That's why he said never be mad about getting older, because if you aren't getting older, you're dead. So just be happy. And then an old coach told me one time that if you aren't learning, you might as well die. So I said, those are morbid statements, but you know what? I will very happily celebrate both of them, celebrate getting older and celebrate learning. So I am happy to be right here with you. Thank you very much, Jamie.
Well, thank you, Ty. Have a great rest of the day.
That was Jamie Pollard. He's the Director of Athletics at Iowa State University. And of course, this is Ty Brown with One Question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of One Question is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.